live at the Gaiety Theatre. It's 120 years old today, and we keep on talking about Frank Matcham. Francis Matcham was born on the 22nd of November 1854. He died on the 17th of May 1920, just over 100 years ago. He designed hundreds of darn theatres all over the place. The most notable ones, well, the most notable one to us is the Gaiety Theatre, but he was also the man behind the Hackney Empire in London, the Coliseum, the Palladium, the Victoria Palace, and the Grand Theatre in Blackpool as well, and also the Tower Ballroom at Blackpool Tower. So, of course, he knows of what he speaks, and that's why we have a Rolls-Royce, a Bentley indeed, a Maserati, a De Tomaso of theatres on the Douglas Promenade. And Jane Corkle here from the DESC, Art Development Officer, is that right?
I am. I'm the Arts Development Manager.
Okay.
So it's my role. I look after the Arts Council and all things arts.
How much do you have to do with the Gaiety?
Well, the Arts Council has always supported the theatre, and principally we now support by subsidising our amateur societies here to enable the amateurs to perform here at a subsidised rate to ensure that the long and very valuable and important history of amateur theatre on the Isle of Man continues.
And lots of companies, lots of amateur companies on the island.
We have a lot now. I have performed a lot on the Gaiety Theatre.
Well, I have to ask you then, I've asked everybody else,
yes.
favourite role?
Oh, well, I'd have to say Maria in The Sound of Music. That pretty much topped it. But I think probably my favourite show was when I was a witch in The Witches of Eastwick.
And
that's typecasting.
Thank you. Which you said it, not me.
Yeah.
Which company did The Sound of Music?
It was the Douglas Choral Union. And when I was Maria, it was the choral. But the time before that, I was a Von Trapp, and that was with the operatic.
So you mentioned that the Arts Council supports. Who makes the decisions? Who says where the money goes?
Oh, well, the actual council members do. The amateurs,
how many are there?
There are 10. We have 10 council members. We've just appointed 3 new members this week, so that will be announced in the next few days. But the council members do. The amateur subsidy has been in place for now a good 6 years. The council recognises it's important to support the amateurs. It reaches not only those that perform, but obviously our audiences as well. I think we've all been to sort of Les Mis, and the performances are so well supported. It's very much an integral part of the Isle of Man art scene.
Jane, we've been through for the past 4 months Alice in Wonderland. Nobody knows which way is up, whether it's half-time, high tide or early closing. So tell us what part the arts will play in putting our society back together again.
I think everybody has really begin to understood now how important the arts are to us, and whether that's just because you watch Coronation Street on the television or in lockdown. I've got 2 teenage children. If we hadn't have had Netflix, who knows what would have happened. But I think people now realise the value. All of that is art. People, I think, don't realise sometimes how the arts actually are such a big part of their everyday life.
And there's a feeling when some people hear the word or the phrase the arts, their eyes glaze over and think it's highfalutin and nothing to do with me.
They do. And as an arts council in the last couple of years, we've been working very, very hard to try and break down those barriers on the island. And we like to now support bands, for example. We've supported music series at places like Compton Vaults, which it's a different side of the arts, but we want to make it accessible to everybody because it plays a part in everybody's life, whether they think it does or it doesn't.
Jane, terrific to talk to you. By the way, what is your favourite thing?
My favourite thing?
Raindrops on roses or whiskers on kittens?
Oh, roses. Definitely the roses.
Right, good to talk to you.
Thanks
for being with us today. We're live at the Gaiety Theatre, and there simply is one person without whom this place just wouldn't be here. A man who man and boy physically climbed in skips the length and breadth of Britain to architecturally salvage pieces that would end up at the Gaiety Theatre. A man, if you take every brick out of this building, it's probably got Mervyn Russell Stokes written on the top. Mervyn, just sum up how you're feeling today.
Humble. It's been a lifetime's work. And it's something which is so important for this island, so important for theatre, so important for Frank Matcham.
Matcham, centenary of his death a couple of months ago as well, and 120 years ago, this flipping place was coming alive. And here we are now. So much has not stood the test of time. And on Douglas Promenade, we have an iconic architectural icon, we have a performing arts space, and we have a resource for people on the Isle of Man. It was your fault. When did you decide, when did you come to the conclusion this patient could be revived?
It's strange, really. When I first came here, Frank Matcham wasn't recognised. It was in the late 60s, early 70s. And nobody knew him, really. I mean, I didn't know he built this place at all. And it was only by research we discovered what he had done. It was only by research we discovered that he built things like the London Palladium, the London Colosseum, and that he was prolific. And when we looked into what had actually disappeared, we discovered most of it had gone. This one can only be spoken of in superlatives. It's the only theatre in Great Britain that has never been redecorated. It's lucky. I mean, I've managed to go right the way back to the very beginning. On opening night, there was a young man here called Fred Barwell. And Freddie was quite young, and he was employed to run around the theatre and be a call boy and a general dog's body. Freddie, as many did in those days, joined the Lancashire Regiment. The Liverpool Regiment before the outbreak of the First World War. And he then came back here and became the second manager of the Gaiety till 1932, when he became a director for the Palace in Derby Castle and was responsible for all the theatres and cinemas in the island. And he retired in the late 60s, and he still used to come right up until the 90s to the Gaiety. He had his own seat down at the front there. And we used to totter down together because he was quite feeble by then. And he always used to grab my arm and say, "Before I went to war, I got a ladder and went up and signed my name on that ceiling before I went away in case I didn't come back." And I used to say, "Yes, Fred, it's 60 feet high." Yes. However, when we did, for the first time in many years, scaffold the theatre to restore the ceiling, the first thing I saw was Fred Barwell, March the 20th, 1914, which was quite incredible. And he saw the whole of the theatre's history right through from its first night until the late 90s.
Just tell Mervyn, why did you insist on authenticity? Why did you never compromise?
Because there could be no compromise. You can go to other Matcham theatres and they're beautiful, you know, they're lovely, but they're not original. They've been redecorated, they've been repainted. You know, the carpets are exactly as they were now. The wallpaper is exactly as they were. This is the only really authentic Matcham theatre left in Great Britain. And that is why it's so important. That's why it should be better known. And that's why we must guard it very carefully, so that in the future, well-intentioned but wrong improvements are made. It must be always done as it should be in 1900. And we can do that if we all work together.
Thanks for being with us today, and the island owes you an immense debt of gratitude. The world of the arts. I just can't believe you didn't know it was Frank Matcham when you came.
He wasn't even heard
He
of,
wasn't,
really.
no.
He'd gone, he'd died in
It was
19...
all about brutalist structures back in the 60s, wasn't it?
Yes, I mean, he's only been dead 50 years,
Yeah,
really.
that's
You know,
fantastic.
but it's
Mervyn, thanks so much. Thanks for being with us today.
great pleasure.
Good to talk to you. Thank you.
you.
Mervyn Russell Stokes, and I want to bring David Stacey is with us. David Stacey is from the Friends of the Gaiety Theatre as well. David?
Thank you.
Live on the air. When
Okay.
did you first get involved with the Gaiety?
Well, I haven't got it recorded. I think it was about 15 years ago. So I had a few years on the committee, and then Charles Sentence, who was a mover and shaker before me.
What drew you to the Gaiety?
Well, I just thought it is. I know it's often referred to as the jewel in the crown, and it's just a wonderful asset, not for everybody on the Isle of Man. And I think the nature of the shows they put on, it's such a mixture. that surely everybody at some stage each year comes here. But it was interesting that you were just talking to Mervyn, because he will have missed. I closed the proceedings out there just now and said if there's one man I've got to make special reference to, that is Mervyn, because even after he retired, it took me several years to persuade him to join the FOGS, so the FOGS committee. So we have about 5 or 6 meetings a year, and Mervyn is pretty much always there, and his knowledge and viewpoint on how we should go about things is so usually spot on that it's great to have him back in the ranks, just on the FOGS committee.
Well, David, you've been involved. You're in insurance, of course.
I was. Well, I'm still chair of Tower. I'm looking up to.
Well, let's say you've been involved in matters financial a long time, so you know how many beans make 5.
Oh, I do
so
indeed.
tell us how important the arts is then. Where does the arts fit in to the life of a society?
Well, because it's a permanent feature. It's it started. I know Gaiety isn't the only thing that is arts, but it's the one that's right up there, and so many other art organisations, the societies, the Coal Union, all those sort of people make use of this wonderful asset. But it's the variety of show that it puts on that surely everybody. I'm not a huge fan of all art, but you can't be just amazed every time I come to the theatre for whatever the show is, whether it's the pantomime or whether it's the Douglas Coal Union, whatever it is, Gilbert and Sullivan. There's something in there for everybody, and I can't understand anybody not leaving the theatre feeling really good about themselves when they've been here.
Good to talk to you.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for being with us today. Here we are,
I've done on
live at the
stage.
Gaiety Theatre. The Mannin line
Yes.
is here through till 1 o'clock, and it's the 120th anniversary. Our Chief Minister is here as well, just on stage as well. It's a great day today.
It's a fantastic day. I think if you said to any person on the Isle of Man, name the best building on the island, I don't think many wouldn't say the Gaiety Theatre. It really is the jewel in the Isle of Man's crown, and long may it continue.
And of course, it's going to be the only theatre open in the British Isles. Next month, when the Calendar Girls open, this is it. This is the bit of theatre that's still beating.
Yes, as I've always said, the show must go on, and on the Isle of Man the show can go on because of the great Manx public working together as a great community to get us in this fantastic position.
Chief Minister, I do have to bring up, by the way, your role in Jesus Christ Superstar.
Yes, I was Simon Zalotes many years ago with the great Ernie Thorne as playing
Tony
the role.
Hawks as well.
Tony Hawks, yes, a lot of good friends and youngsters, Matthew James and etc. that have gone on.
Which group was that?
Manx Operatic Society.
Operatic Society.
In those days, it was the Manx Operatic Society or Douglas Coal Union. Now they sort of go in between. I know David Artis, who's gone on to be a really fine actor, was in that show with me too.
Do you remember that show at all? Do you remember being in it?
I do. I remember being picketed by a religious organisation who didn't want the show to go ahead, even though I thought it dealt with it very sympathetically. I also remember in rehearsals one of the palm trees falling over, hit by a donkey and hitting the director and knocking his toupee off. It's amazing what funny things you remember, but I've seen them all on the stage here.
And that's interesting because the Isle of Man obviously has to turn a penny. It has to have a financial life and an economic life. But this is part of our arts. This is what I think Picasso once said, art is what washes the daily dust off the soul.
It does, and whether it be art, music, or acting and art as a painting form, then it's all important. I know it's very important in my life. It's all those 3 areas, and we had a lovely poem too. Another of my joys is poetry, and they all help the soul and the mind unwind.
Well, it's good to be with you today. Thanks for being with us. I know it's a very busy time for you. Combing okay this morning, was it?
Combing, yes, and then back to Combing this afternoon, and another event on this evening.
Thanks for being with us
Thank
today.
you very much indeed.
Good to talk to you.